Hola amigos, here are your notes on the preterite of ER and IR verbs as well as 5 irregular verbs. So please make sure you've printed off the notes from Schoology first so that you can fill them out following this video or handwrite them on line paper. Just a reminder, pretérito is the past tense that we're focusing on. We learned the AR preterites a couple of chapters ago, and now we're going to focus on ER and IR verbs as well as a few irregular verbs. So remember, we are dropping the ER-IR off the end, just like what we do with present tense, but our endings are going to be different for our ER and IR verbs than they are for our AR verbs. Oh, and then please also remember, there are no stem changes in the verbs that we're going to be talking about in this chapter. So there are some stem changes, but we're not going to look at those this chapter at all. So no stem changes for the future here. So our endings for our preterite verbs for ER and IR are I with an accent, E, iste, IO with an accent, pronounced EO, imos, istes, and ieron. So they kind of look similar to our AR endings with a lot of I's instead of those A's. So we have the verb vender, which is to sell. If I want to say I sold something, I'm going to drop the ER off the end, use an I accent, and say yo vendí. You sold would be vendiste. He or she sold, vendió. We sold, vendimos. The vosotros form, vendisteis. And then they or you all sold, vendieron. So I with an accent, iste, IO with an accent, imos, istes, and ieron. If I wanted to use the verb comer to say I ate something, we're going to say comí, yo comí, use an I accent. You ate, use iste, comiste. He or she ate, use an IO, comió. We ate, use imos, comimos. Vosotros form uses istes, comistes. And then ieron for ellos and ustedes, comieron, they ate. So I want you to try escribir by yourself, conjugate it in all 6 forms in the preterite using our ER-IR preterite endings. So escribir means to write, so we're going to use escribí, escribiste, escribió, escribimos, escribistes, and escribieron. Now I want you to try vivir, to live, on your own using those same conjugation endings. So you should end up with viví, viviste, vivió, vivimos, vivistes, and vivieron. Now using these in sentence form, we're going to look at our subjects and our verbs in parentheses and decide which conjugation we need. So we have nosotros, correr mucho anoche. We ran a lot last night. Correr is going to drop the ER. For nosotros, we're going to use imos, corrimos. Número 2, yo vender muchos discos compactos ayer. I sold a lot of CDs yesterday. We're going to drop the ER off. For yo, we add an I accent, yo vendí. Número 3, Azalia en barrió el suelo la semana pasada. She swept the floor last week. For Azalia, a girl, we're going to use IO accent, barrió. Víctor salir con Mario. He left with Mario. We're going to use an IO accent again for Víctor, so we have salió. Número 5, we have Suiza y Toro beber el refresco anoche. They drank a soft drink last night. So for 2 people, we're going to use ieron, bebieron. Yo escribí a máquina muy rápido. That means I wrote by machine or I typed very fast. So for yo form, I use an I accent again. Yo escribí. Número 7, vivir tú en la República Dominicana. Did you live in the Dominican Republic? For the to form, we use an iste, so we have viviste. And then número 8, ustedes aprender el año pasado. You all learned last year. We're going to use for ustedes, ieron, I-E-R-O-N, so we have aprendieron. Now, those are our regular preterites, our regular ER and IR verbs. We're also going to talk about 5 irregular verbs that do not follow those specific rules. They look similar, they have some similar patterns to them, but they are different. So those are the verbs ir, ser, ver, dar, and hacer. And you'll notice with these 5 verbs that they have no accents. That's one of the things that makes them irregular. So for our regular ER and IR verbs, we have an accent on the yo form and we have an accent on the LA form. But for these next 5 verbs that we're going to be talking about, they do not have any accents. So first we're going to talk about ir and ser. They are the same conjugation. We're going to use ir more often in the preterite than we will ser, but they do have the same exact conjugations. So remember, ir means to go. In the past tense or in the preterite, it would mean I went or we went. And its conjugations are the following. We have fui for I went, fuiste for you went, fue for he or she or usted went, fuimos for we went, fuisteis for vosotros, and fueron for they or you all. So you'll notice these have similar endings to the ER-IR ones that we just saw. This one has an I, but no accent. This one has iste, this one has imos and istes, but down here we don't have an IO, it's fue. This one doesn't have an I in it, it's just fueron. So it's kind of a similar pattern, but has some definite irregularities. And of course, ir has no Fs in it, so it makes it irregular. And again, ser is going to be the exact same conjugation. Remember, ser means to be. In the past tense would mean was or were. Next, we have hacer, and hacer means to do or to make. In the past tense, we'll say made or did. So if I want to use the yo form of hacer, it's going to be hice, H-I-C-E. The to form, hiciste. The la form is hizo with the Z. We did or made, hicimos. The vosotros form, hicisteis, and you all or they made, hicieron. So notice there's not one A in any of these. Hacer has an A in it, but none of its preterite conjugations do. This one has a Z in it. This one starts with an E. It's kind of got a lot of irregularities to it. I will say hacer is probably the verb that is conjugated incorrectly the most because most people try to do it like a regular ER verb, but it's just not. All right, moving on. We have ver is to see. In the preterite, we would say saw, I saw, you saw. So ver, the only thing that makes ver irregular is that it has no accents. Otherwise, it has the same conjugation endings as any other ER verb. So I saw would be vi, you saw would be viste, he or she saw vio, we saw vimos, vosotros form is vistes, and then they or you all saw vieron. So no accents, otherwise it's just a regular ER verb. And then dar means to give. In the preterite, it means gave. So dar is irregular because it's conjugated instead of like an AR verb, it's conjugated like an ER verb. So it uses regular ER endings, but again with no accents. So I gave is di, you gave is diste, he or she gave is dio, we gave is dimos, vosotros form is distes, and then they or you all gave dieron. So those are our 5 irregular verbs conjugated in their irregular ways. So let's look at some examples here. We have Marco ir al museo anoche. He went to the museum last night. So ir is the conjugation that has the F's in it. So the Marco form would be fue. Número 2, nosotros le dar un regalo a mi madre. We gave a present to my mom. We're going to conjugate dar like an ER verb, not an AR verb. So for the nosotros form, we're going to use imos at the end, dimos. Número 3, yo hacer esquí acuático ayer. So we're going to conjugate hacer in the yo form, which is irregular, hice, H-I-C-E. I water skied yesterday. Número 4, los chicos ver la película la semana pasada. They saw the movie last week. Ver, again, is irregular only because of the accents, but in the los chicos form, we're just going to use regular ER endings. So we have vieron. And then número 5, the fair, ser divertida, the fair was fun. We'll conjugate like a he or a she for ser, which is the same conjugations as ir. So again, we have fue. Our 5 sentence translations here, we're going to decide which verb to use, which of our 5 irregulars, and then translate the rest of the sentence. So we saw the giraffes at the zoo yesterday. Saw is our verb ver. We're going to conjugate it for we, for nosotros. So we're going to have nosotros vimos jirafas al zoológico ayer. Número dos, he did homework last night. To do homework is hacer la tarea. So we're going to conjugate hacer for he. Hizo la tarea anoche. Número tres, I went to the zoo last week. To go, went is to go. So we're going to use ir. In the yo form, yo fui al zoológico la semana pasada. Cuatro, we gave food to the seals. To give is dar, so we're conjugating that for we, nosotros. Nosotros dimos comida a las focas. Y número cinco, the museum was boring. Was is the verb ser, to be. In the museum form, in the he, she form, would be el museo fue aburrido. So you're going to use these notes to help you with your assignments for this week, and we will test our quiz over this on Friday. Adios.